Have you ever woken up in the morning, stretched your arms, and thought to yourself, my body just doesn't feel the same anymore? Maybe you remember a time when you could move freely, walk long distances, or even play with your kids or grandkids without feeling so tired afterward. Then one day, you notice that just climbing a few stairs makes you short of breath, or bending down to pick something up feels like a challenge. I know that feeling very well because that was me not too long ago. I had reached a point in my life, after turning 65, where I thought exercise was no longer for me. It felt like something for younger people, something that belonged to the past. I told myself, I've worked hard my whole life, I deserve to rest. But the truth was, I wasn't really resting. I was slowly losing my energy, my independence, and in many ways, my joy. What surprised me the most was how exercise had turned into this dreaded word, almost like a punishment. When I heard the word, I imagined heavy weights at the gym, running miles on the treadmill, or doing complicated routines I had no interest in learning. No wonder I avoided it. But life has a way of teaching us gentle lessons when we're willing to listen. My lesson came one afternoon when I was out of breath after just walking across my own living room. I sat down, held my chest, and thought, this can't be it. I still want to enjoy these years, not sit on the sidelines. That was the moment I realized I had to change. What I discovered, slowly and tenderly, was that exercise doesn't have to be about pushing your body until it aches. It doesn't have to be a chore, a list of repetitive movements you dread every morning. It can actually be a form of joy, a way to celebrate what your body can still do, no matter your age. I learned that movement, at its heart, is about freedom. The freedom to bend down and tie your shoes, the freedom to walk to the park without stopping to catch your breath, the freedom to dance a little in your kitchen when a favorite song comes on. Exercise, I realized, could be something beautiful, something that gave me back my confidence and dignity. One of the first changes I made was to start very small. And I mean very small. I didn't go to a gym or buy any equipment. Instead, I began with something as simple as walking. At first, it was just 5 minutes around my home, sometimes holding on to a chair for balance. 5 minutes felt like a mountain. But I reminded myself that it wasn't about how far or how fast I could go. It was about showing up for myself, about proving to myself that I still cared for this body that had carried me through so many years of life. And let me tell you, those 5 minutes turned into 10, then into 20, and before I knew it, I was looking forward to those little walks each day. It became my quiet time, my chance to breathe fresh air, feel the sun on my skin, and let my thoughts wander freely. Another lesson I learned was that movement could be fun. I had always loved music, and one day, I decided to play a song from my younger years while tidying the house. Without thinking, my feet started tapping, my hips swayed a little, and before long, I was dancing. I laughed at myself because I hadn't danced in years. But it felt wonderful, free, silly, and alive. That's when I realized exercise didn't have to look like exercise. It could be disguised as joy. Dancing in the kitchen, gardening in the yard, playing catch with a grandchild, even stretching while watching television. These were all forms of movement that counted. Once I embraced that, I stopped dreading exercise and started enjoying it as part of my everyday life. I also began to understand the emotional side of movement. It wasn't just my body that was changing when I moved, it was my spirit. On days when I felt lonely or weighed down by worry, just stepping outside and moving my body lightened the heaviness inside me. There's something powerful about the rhythm of walking, about the way fresh air clears your head, about how your heart beats a little faster when you push yourself just enough. I started noticing that I slept better on days I stayed active. My mood lifted, and I felt calmer, less restless. It was as though my body was saying, thank you for remembering me. The most beautiful part of this journey was realizing that I didn't have to do it alone. I found joy in inviting others into my movement. Sometimes it was a neighbor who joined me for a slow stroll. Other times, it was my granddaughter teaching me stretches she learned at school. Sharing these moments made exercise feel less like a task and more like a gift, a way of connecting with the people I love. I could see the smiles on their faces when I joined in, And that gave me even more motivation to keep moving. Looking back, I see now that the biggest change wasn't just in my body, it was in how I thought about exercise. I stopped treating it as punishment and began to see it as nourishment. Just like eating a good meal or getting a full night's rest, moving my body became another way to honor this stage of life. It reminded me that aging doesn't mean we stop living. It means we find new, gentler ways to keep living fully. So if you're sitting there today, maybe feeling unsure about where to start, let me assure you, you don't need a gym membership, you don't need fancy clothes, and you don't need to push yourself harder than your body allows. You just need to begin, however small that beginning looks. Even 5 minutes counts. Even a smile while you sway to a song in your kitchen counts. The important thing is to find movement that makes you feel alive, not burdened. Movement that feels like joy. When I first started to see exercise as joy instead of a burden, something inside me shifted. I began to notice that the little steps I was taking were not just helping me physically, but were also changing the way I felt about myself. For years, I carried the thought that getting older meant slowing down, sitting more, and eventually giving up on things I once enjoyed. But what I came to understand is that slowing down doesn't mean stopping. It means moving with care, moving with intention, and finding a rhythm that works for your life as it is now. There was a time when I compared myself to younger people. I'd look at someone jogging down the street or lifting heavy weights and feel defeated before I even began. But comparison only steals our motivation. One of the most important lessons I learned is that my body, at 65 and beyond, deserves respect for all it has carried me through. This body has weathered storms, raised a family, worked long days, celebrated, mourned, and healed. When I started to see movement as a way of honoring that history, it became easier to approach it with gratitude instead of resentment. That shift in perspective was more powerful than any exercise routine. One day, while walking through the park, I noticed something I hadn't before. There were people of all ages moving in their own way. Children running and laughing, teenagers kicking a ball, adults jogging, and older folks like me strolling with gentle smiles. It struck me that movement doesn't belong to one age group. It's part of being alive. Watching them, I thought, I can belong to this too. I don't have to sit on the bench watching life go by. That realization gave me courage to keep showing up, even on days when my knees ached or my back felt stiff. Another thing that helped me was learning to listen to my body, not fight against it. When you're young, it's easy to ignore the small aches and push harder. But as we age, listening becomes essential. Instead of forcing myself to do what didn't feel right, I experimented with movements that felt good. Stretching in the morning, before I even left my bed, became a little ritual. Slowly rolling my shoulders, circling my ankles, or simply taking a deep breath and lifting my arms overhead. It all woke up my body in gentle ways. I began to see stretching as a gift I gave myself each morning, preparing me for the day ahead. I also discovered the beauty of balance exercises. At first, I didn't understand how important balance was until I stumbled while reaching for something in the kitchen. That little scare reminded me how vital it is to keep my body steady and strong. So I began practicing by standing near a chair, lifting one foot for a few seconds, and then switching to the other. It wasn't fancy, but it gave me confidence. Over time, my balance improved, and I realized that these small efforts could save me from a serious fall. That alone made me feel proud every time I practiced. What made the journey even more meaningful was noticing the ripple effect in other areas of my life. Moving more gave me more energy to do things I loved, like cooking a meal without needing to sit down halfway through, or playing with my grandchildren, and actually keeping up with their laughter. The moments I gained were worth far more than the minutes I spent walking or stretching. Each step I took was like an investment in future memories. More birthdays, more holidays, more time to sit outside and feel the breeze on my face. Exercise, I realized, was not about adding years to my life, but about adding life to my years. There were days, of course, when I didn't feel like moving. I'm human and so are you. Sometimes the couch feels more inviting than the sidewalk. But on those days, I reminded myself that movement doesn't have to be all or nothing. Even a few minutes of gentle motion is better than none. I would walk slowly around my house or simply stand and stretch. Some days I put on a soft piece of music and let my body sway, reminding myself that effort, no matter how small, still mattered. I learned to celebrate consistency, not perfection. An unexpected blessing came when I joined a community group that met twice a week for gentle exercises in the park. At first, I hesitated. I thought, what if I can't keep up? What if people judge me? But when I finally went, I was welcomed with warm smiles and laughter. Everyone was moving at their own pace, some faster, some slower, but all together. The camaraderie was uplifting. We encouraged each other, shared stories, and built friendships that went beyond exercise. Suddenly, movement wasn't something I did alone. It was something that connected me to others. That social piece was just as healing as the physical activity. I remember one morning, a woman in the group said to me, "I never thought I'd be exercising at 70, but here we are." We both laughed, and I thought about how much richer my life felt because I had opened the door to this experience. Exercise gave me a sense of belonging again, a reminder that it's never too late to start something new. Perhaps the most powerful realization came when I noticed my mind growing stronger along with my body. I used to feel anxious about aging, worried about losing my independence. But every walk I took, every stretch I completed, every balance exercise I practiced gave me a sense of control again. It reassured me that while I can't stop the clock from ticking, I can choose how I live each moment. Movement became my way of saying to myself, I am still here, I am still capable, and I am still worthy of joy. So often we think of exercise only as a tool for physical health, but it is also medicine for the heart and soul. The rhythm of my footsteps became a kind of prayer, reminding me of the gift of life. The lifting of my arms became a symbol of reaching toward hope. The laughter shared with others while moving reminded me that happiness grows when shared. And so, my friend, if you have been holding back because you're afraid it's too late, let me gently assure you, it isn't. Movement can meet you exactly where you are. It doesn't demand perfection, only presence. It doesn't ask you to prove yourself, only to honor yourself. And once you allow joy into the process, you'll find that exercise no longer feels like something you have to do, but something you get to do. As I look back on this journey, what amazes me most is not how much stronger my body feels, but how much lighter my heart has become. Before I embraced movement, I carried a weight of fear. The fear of decline, the fear of becoming a burden, the fear that the best days of my life were already behind me. But when I welcomed exercise, not as punishment but as joy, those fears began to soften. I realized that age is not something to fight against, it's something to live through with grace. Movement gave me the courage to see these years not as the closing of a chapter, but as the opening of a new one. There's something profoundly humbling about relearning how to enjoy your body. As children, we ran simply because it felt good. We twirled, we skipped, we climbed trees, never thinking about calories or heart rates. Somewhere along the way, many of us lost that innocent joy, replacing it with pressure, obligation, or even shame. Rediscovering that childlike spirit, through dancing in the kitchen, through laughing during a slow walk with a friend, has been like reconnecting with a part of myself I thought was gone forever. And if I can rediscover that at 65, 70, or beyond, I know you can too. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned is that movement is not just about what you do with your body. It's about what it awakens inside your soul. When I take a slow walk at sunset and watch the sky paint itself in shades of gold and pink, I am reminded of beauty. When I bend down in my garden and feel the earth in my hands, I am reminded of connection. When I stretch my arms open wide, I am reminded of possibility. Exercise, in its simplest form, became a doorway to gratitude, opening my eyes to small joys I had overlooked. That gratitude began to spill into other areas of my life. I started noticing how good a glass of water felt after a walk, how deeply I slept on days I moved, how much easier it was to laugh when my body felt light and alive. These changes weren't just physical, they were emotional and spiritual. They reminded me that I am still very much alive, still capable of growing, still deserving of joy. I remember a day when I was walking slowly around the neighborhood, and a young child waved to me from across the street. She ran up and said, "You walk every day, I see you." In her little voice, I heard something important people notice. Our families, our neighbors, our communities notice when we choose to take care of ourselves. We may not realize it, but our choices inspire others, even quietly. By simply showing up for ourselves, we send a message of hope to those around us. That aging is not the end of living, but a new way of living fully.